Refocus 360 conference. And our theme this year again is return, refocus, and re-engage. So super excited about our next speaker. He is a very good friend of mine, and he was one of our keynote speakers a few years ago. And honestly, I met Dr. Bennett at a conference and we were just fast friends. And now we're truly blessed to have each other in each other's lives. So Dr. Bennett is the president of OWLS, which is Organizational Wellness and Learning Systems. OWLS is a consulting firm that specializes in evidence-based wellness and e-learning technologies to promote organizational health and employee well-being. He's primary developer of team awareness and team resilience, evidence-based culture of health programs recognized by the U.S. Department of Health as effective in reducing employee behavioral risks. He provides keynote speaking and continues to train facilitators in team culture of health and resilience workshops. Dr. Bennett's theme today is the 3 R's: refocus, re-energize, re-sensitize, managing in uncertain times. Dr. Bennett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joanna. Do we have some polls ready to launch in a little bit?
I do. Yep. Just let me know when.
Great. Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. And thank you, Kevin, for grounding us. We're going to do some more grounding, and I'm going to sit on the edge of my chair during this presentation. So the 3 R's. Continuing with the theme, refocus, re-energize, re-sensitize. If anybody owns an owl or a monkey, I'd like to know about it. But if you own a cat, you can also put that in the chat box. If you own all 3, that would be really amazing, because we're going to be talking about the energy of these 3 critters. So what are we talking about here? There's so much discussion about trauma-informed, and it's very important to, as we move forward, be sensitive, and we'll talk about sensitizing, to the plight, to the trauma, to the difficulties, to the challenges that so many people have faced. We are wanting to flip the switch to include not just trauma-informed, but thriving informed or thrive informed. And that's the focus that I want to speak to you about today, and to encourage you all to do, given your backgrounds, your own interest. And so the whole point of this is designed to thrive. But I'm a big believer that to do that, we have to dig deep within ourselves. We have to look not just at what we've learned from our training, our professional degrees, but what we know from what I would call, and what people call, the mythic imagination. And what I mean by mythic imagination is something I'm going to ask you to experience. So I'm going to ask you to do a guided visualization with me. And in this guided visualization, I want you to sit back just like Kevin worked with you, and get into a space of openness. And think now about the possibility that you are going to a place, that you are relaxed and alive, and that there's a great space in front of you. You recognize that you're about to begin a journey, an important journey. You look at this great, big, beautiful planet in front of you. This is your home. And you wonder to yourself, what will I learn here on this journey? Who will I become? What will I give? It is this last question that centers you and vitalizes you. And in fact, makes you happy. What will I give? Who will I become? You look at your home, and you're in that place, that centered place that Kevin helped us move into. And you wonder, who will I become? What is my calling? What will I contribute? And you recognize that you're standing on a threshold. In fact, we are all standing on a threshold. All of us are on the threshold, not just here today, but the entire planet is on a threshold. You're on some sort of platform. Perhaps it's the steps of a temple. It's a jumping off place, a threshold, a place in between places. And you ask, what can I do to make my home better? How many people can I love? How will my strengths make a difference? How can I make a difference to and for the strengths of others? Of course, you know that there will be challenges, and you recognize those challenges. And still, you know, with confidence, I will contribute. You know within you that without a doubt, I will contribute. And in knowing that, that is where you want to focus. That's the focus. And that's the only focus that matters. So with that as a jumping off place, as a threshold, I want to talk about these three areas to further guide us. Refocus means we need to do a lot more listening instead of telling. Re-energize means we need to be inspired by others' strengths and let the strengths of others inspire us instead perhaps of competing. And re-sensitize means we need to resensitize ourselves to a new set of challenges that have never occurred before to the extent that they're occurring now. And these are challenges faced by others. So there's a theme here, right? Listening, inspired by others, and sensitizing ourselves to others. It's about how we contribute. There are two challenges that we face. The first is the confusion and uncertainty that we experience often leads us to the external search for answers. To Kevin's point, we might look for an app instead of listening to our own hands. So that search for answers outside of us, that's the problem, not the confusion and the uncertainty. It's how we react to the confusion and uncertainty, which brings us to the second challenge, which is this living in a place of opinion and having polarizing statements that send us off the edge and become a platform for, I'm going to take my opinion and I'm going to tell you what I think. So these two challenges, confusion and uncertainty and exposure to polarizing statements, are where we need to cut through like a laser with our contribution focus. I want to talk a little bit more about these. The external search for answers rather than internal cultivation. Right now, we're seeing all this focus on, should we go remote? Should we do hybrid? Is it in office? How are we going to configure the office? How are we going to make the benefits design work? How are we going to, it's all external strategic. And of course, it's important. Same thing though, mask wearing, do we mandate? Is it a preference? These decisions are taking up as much attention as attention that's needed in the workplace for recruitment, retention, and just getting the work done. The focus is on logistics, on those outward conditions, and all this scrambling that's going on to adjust. My request is, let's focus on the human element. Let's focus on inner development. Instead of scrambling to adjust, let's do what we can to design to thrive. And I'll talk in a minute about how to do that, and that's our focus. In a parallel way, these polarizing statements, rather than common ground, occur because of social media, internet echo chamber, the focus on the news. Again, these can pull our attention more often than our empathy. There's a tendency to appeal to fear rather than compassion. So instead, we need to tap our inner observer and listen with humble inquiry. Both of these challenges mean it's time to refocus on how we can bring out the best in ourselves and each other, rather than look for quick solutions and rather than take sides. And I'm repeating this over and over again because this is what you're all, I believe, being called to do. So instead of coming up with a formula for remote work, ask your team, which working conditions will bring out the best in you and our team? Why don't you just ask? And people will say, well, everybody's going to want something different. And I don't have the ability to do that. Ask and listen. Instead of always having to state your opinion, ask others, can you tell me more about why you think the way you do? And really listen. This is our focus. This is, I had the honor of doing an interview, and you can follow the YouTube link here on the bottom, with Edgar and Peter Schein in their book, Humble Inquiry, which I strongly recommend. We live in a telling culture where we show off what we know, win arguments, and have to be the one to come up with the right solution. As a result, we fail to inquire humbly and earnestly, making it less safe for others to share. So this is where our focus needs to be, humble inquiry. There's research in this area called collective leadership. And you can see this article by Contractor and colleagues from the Leadership Quarterly. This is leadership that's broadly and dynamically distributed instead of in the hands of one person. One person cannot do all the listening. So what's happening, I believe, is all of these tragic things that are occurring are really a call to humanity to come up with a new way of leading. And that also requires this focus on listening and bringing out the best in others. So I want to show you a model for how you can map yourself through this. If you look here at the bottom, stating one's opinion can lead to defending one's opinion, can lead to degrading others' opinion, can lead to attacking others, and then it just gets worse. And of course, microaggressions and a lot of what we're talking about in the DEI space is folded in here. But look at it going up, having the conversation, inquiring about the other, heedfully relating. That leads to taking others' perspective, empathizing with them, having compassion, and so on. What's amazing to me is just how many methodologies there are out there for this very thing. And if you know or do any of these practices on the right, please go ahead and put it in the chat box. If you want to say something about them or a book that you've read or someone you've studied with, these are all really wonderful tools to help us move to a higher level of listening. And that higher level of listening taps into the very thing that Kevin was talking about, this inner observer, this witness, this space of love and compassion where we can respond thoughtfully rather than react. So it means listening, of course, to ourselves. Again, if you're familiar with any of these approaches, please feel free to go ahead and share. This is our first poll, and I do want to get a read on how you all are thinking about this. This is a strongly disagree to strongly agree, and Johanna will launch the poll. As a culture, we need to focus more of our attention now on inquiring and listening rather than telling. Johanna? So go ahead and make your vote, and I'll see how this goes. How are we doing on response?
Can you not see it?
I can't see the response. I can see the questions.
Okay. We have 55% at strongly agree, 29% at agree, 6% in between, 0% say disagree, but 10% says strongly disagree.
Great. So it's those ones who said strongly disagree, which is what I was hoping for, because this is what we need to do. Those who said strongly disagree, I heartily encourage you to write why you disagreed in the chat box. Because if we don't do this, if we don't create the safe space for people to share their opinion, the very thing we're talking about, so what are we doing here? And you'd be able to contact me and share your opinion with me, and listen at any point. If we had a chance, we would do breakouts, but we don't have a chance in this webinar. The next piece is re-energize. What are we even listening for? What we are listening for are virtues, strengths, talents, resilience, and aspirations. I believe that what people are calling the Great Resignation, the failure to accommodate different types of needs, is partly due, I'm not saying entirely, but partly due to the failure to listen to our colleagues, our coworkers, our employees, our team members' virtues, strengths, talents, resilience, and aspirations. When we take the time to do that, it is amazing. Again, the research shows this. Engagement is the prerequisite for productivity. And listening and supporting the expression of talents is a prerequisite to engagement. So what we're listening for are these strengths. Fortunately, there has been an amazing amount of research on character strengths and virtues. And a lot of it began with the Peterson and Seligman work. So I'm going to show you these different categories that tend to classify strengths and virtues. Transcendence includes beauty, excellence, spirituality, gratitude, hope, humor, temperance, forgiveness and mercy, humility, so on. Justice, a lot of DEI is in the area of justice, citizenship, fairness, humanity, love, kindness, courage. You can see here, I'm going tomorrow to work with veterans, and when I do this exercise with them, a lot of what they talk about is courage. And then wisdom, creativity, open-mindedness, love of learning. These are part of the human condition. These are what make us human. And what's interesting about this is that we know from the research, and I'm happy to share, there are a number of primates that have some empathic capacity. We've seen it, not all, but many. There's mimicry. They have the ability to take perspective. There's a lot that shows they know how to console other monkeys when they're hurting, and they actually help. Of course, we know human beings have this capacity as well, but human beings have a unique aspirational empathy. In addition to responding to pain, we also can respond to joy. We can experience sympathetic joy, and more than that, actually enjoy acknowledging the strengths and higher capacities of others, enjoy helping those others' joys and strengths and virtues and talents and aspirations to come out. I mean, this is why people go into teaching and in healthcare and in wellness, right? So we're actually tapping into that higher level work that I talked about when I showed the upward arrow. So the next poll, and again, if we could do a breakout, we would, is for you to just say which of these domains you get the most energy from. So when we talk about re-energize, we've talked about refocusing on listening. Now we're talking about what gives you energy, what inspires you, what excites you. Which of these 6 brings you the most energy, excitement, or inspiration? So again, I won't be able to see the results here, but when you're ready to share. Oh, there we are. So cool. We have wisdom as the winner here. Again, please share in the chat box what you shared and why, if you can. And I would love to know, you know, and you can share it to everyone, not just to one person. So wisdom, creativity, curiosity. I guess you're here today, so you have a love of learning, so it makes sense. This is a biased audience. And share why you shared. Why did you share what you did? If you can. Good. Humanity, Megan, kindness is so important in everything. If the monkeys can do it, we can do it. Humanity is the most energizing and exciting to me. It was so hard to pick only one of these. So my answer, I believe humanity supports and helps all of your goals and intentions. The knowledge I learn helps me to do a better job. Being creative re-energizes me and helps me relax. All the words and wisdom come from my core. This is who we are as human beings. This is it, guys. This is where we need to draw our energy from. Okay? Please remember that, and to listen to others, because every one of us going through our day always is coming from this place. All of us have it all the time. If we listen and bring it out in each other, which is what coaching is really about, right? Now, if you're not familiar, there are, again, amazing resources out there. There are the Gallup Clifton Strengths, if you have taken that, the VIA Institute on Character, that's a free tool. Marcus Buckingham's Standout, there's some free work there. I like putting Penn's Authentic Happiness at the top because you can see the test center there. They have a lot of free tools. And then we, of course, have done work. Our book, Heart-Centered Leadership, talks about 7 different virtues specifically. And our new book, Best Self at Work, also talks about bringing out one's strengths. So I'm not talking in both of these 2 areas, the refocus and the re-energize, I'm not sharing anything that's new. I'm actually, in fact, doing this because if you're not aware of these tools, please make sure you are aware. If you are aware, please share here which one you've used and which one you like using. I'm a big fan of free, so the VIA tool is a good one, but also the Authentic Happiness. And use these with your clients, use these with your team. The last area, Re-sensitize, to me is, and I'll go quickly here, is the area that almost requires the other two. We have to listen, and we have to have that aspirational listening, that aspirational empathy, so that we can be sensitive and be sensitive to what's happening with others. You know, I don't like gloom and doom. Those of you who know me, I don't like going over stats, but I'll just say, here's some black and white COVID data. We all know about the increased risk of mental health disruption and disorders. We know significant mood reactivity for a number of reasons, one of which is COVID restrictions. In this country alone, 150,000 children have lost a caregiver. And I believe it's 100,000 are now orphans. 100,000 children are orphans because of COVID. Teenage suicidal ideation has increased. Opioid deaths have increased. Alcohol abuse has increased, especially for women. And amazing, when you think about all of what's going on, guess which occupations the resignation is the greatest in? The providers, the people who can do something about listening, healthcare, and educators, which makes it even more important for those of you on this call to focus. And we know that the funding for mental health support is not going to last. So there's another reason to refocus, re-energize, and resensitize. We are actually being called to a new sensitivity. All of us here are being called to be the source of our own help for ourselves and each other. We are in pain. Whenever you have reactivity or see it in others, it's a sign to listen. And most importantly, to share how we ourselves have sought help. There is still tremendous stigma, amazing levels of stigma. You'd think it would be different now. The more we share our own strengths and how getting help helped us be strong in our wisdom, in our transcendence, in our creativity, in our temperance, the more we share how we have sought help and how we have looked for strength, the more likely we're going to stem the reactivity and help with the pain. So the last slide I want to share with you today are just some of my favorite resources, but you probably have your own, and I invite you to also share. I'm a long-term fan of the Spirituality and Practice website. I'm actually currently doing an e-course on workplace spirituality with them. The Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley, Spirituality and Health Magazine, the Penn, again, Positive Psychology Center, National Wellness Institute. I encourage you, if you really like the guided visualization I did and the whole idea of using mythic imagination, I encourage you to check out Michael Mead, who's been doing this for years. He's an amazing storyteller. And on the app side, Cyber Guide is a mental health app guide that reviews the evidence base for mental health apps. So in summarizing all of this, I just want to say that we have an opportunity, and it's one of hope, right? Because by focusing, by drawing new energy, and by being more sensitive, I really believe you can change the world. I really believe that you can take that journey and make that contribution. And I wish you all the best on that journey.